Okay, so you want to own a casino. You picture it immediately. A floor that never sleeps, slot machines ringing at 3 in the morning, blackjack tables surrounded by people who drove hours just to sit in your chairs. High rollers and private rooms where a single hand of cards can move more money than most people earn in a year. It sounds like the ultimate business. The house always wins. Everyone knows that. It's practically a law of nature. People walk through your doors voluntarily, hand you your money, and thank you for the experience on the way out. Here's the problem. Atlantic City, once the gambling capital of the East Coast, lost 5 of its 12 casinos in a single 4-year period between 2014 and 2018. Not struggling casinos, established venues that had operated for decades. The Showboat, the Atlantic Club, the Trump Plaza, the Trump Taj Mahal. Revel, a $2.4 billion resort that opened in 2012 and closed just 2 years later, having never turned a profit. And the reason these casinos failed had almost nothing to do with people stopping gambling. Americans wagered a record $60 billion through legal channels in 2022 alone. Gambling demand has never been higher. And yet, casinos keep closing. The house always wins. The casino owner is a completely different story. My name is David, and you're watching Dollar Horizon. I spend way too much time thinking about money, business economics, and why some of the most profitable-looking industries in the world quietly destroy the people who try to own them. If that's the kind of thing that keeps you up at night, hit subscribe. Let's get into it. Let's start with what it actually costs to open the front door, because the barrier to entry in this industry is unlike almost anything else in the American economy. There are 3 tiers of casino operation: a small regional gaming facility, a mid-sized commercial casino, and a large-scale integrated resort. Each one is a completely different business wearing the same neon lights. A small regional gaming facility, the kind that serves a local market with a few hundred slot machines and a handful of table games, requires somewhere between $25 million and $100 million to open. This sounds like a lot until you realize it represents the absolute floor of what a licensed gaming operation costs in most regulated markets. A mid-sized commercial casino with a full gaming floor, hotel rooms, restaurants, and entertainment venues requires between $200 million and $800 million in initial capital. This is the format that defines most non-Las Vegas casino markets across the United States. A large-scale integrated resort, the Las Vegas Strip format with thousands of hotel rooms, multiple restaurants, a convention center, retail space, and a full entertainment complex, requires between $1 billion and $10 billion to build. The Wynn Las Vegas cost approximately $2.7 billion to construct. The Venetian cost over $1.5 billion. The MGM Grand, $1 billion when it opened in 1993, which adjusts to well over $2 billion in today's dollars. But the construction cost is not the most expensive part of entering this business. The most expensive part is the license. Casino gaming is one of the most heavily regulated industries in the United States. Every state that permits commercial gambling has its own licensing authority, a gaming control board that investigates every applicant's financial history, business associations, personal background, and criminal record going back decades. The investigation process alone can take 1 to 3 years and cost the applicant between $500,000 and several million dollars in legal and compliance fees before a single chip has been purchased. And the license itself, where it is available, can cost between $10 million and $50 million in some jurisdictions, depending on the market and the format of gaming being approved. In some states, the number of available gaming licenses is fixed by law. You cannot simply decide to open a casino. You have to wait for a license to become available and then compete against other applicants for the right to pay for it. Then comes the regulatory ongoing cost. A licensed casino pays a gaming tax on its gross gaming revenue, the total amount won from players. That varies by state, from as low as 6.75% in Nevada to as high as 50% in some Pennsylvania markets. Before a casino pays a single employee, covers a single utility bill, or services a single dollar of its construction debt, the government takes its cut off the top of every dollar won on the gaming floor. Now here's where the naive mental model completely breaks down, and this is the part that separates the idea of the house always winning from the reality of casino ownership. The house edge is real. On a standard American roulette wheel, the house holds a mathematical advantage of 5.26% on every spin. On a blackjack table with standard rules, the house edge runs between 0.5% and 2% depending on how well the player understands basic strategy. On slot machines, which generate the majority of revenue in most commercial casinos, the house edge typically runs between 2% and 15% depending on the machine and the market. These numbers sound small. They are not small when applied to volume. A single slot machine generating $300 in daily handle, the total amount wagered through it, at a 10% house edge produces $30 in gross gaming revenue per day. Across 1,000 machines running 365 days a year, that is $10.95 million in annual gaming revenue from slot machines alone, generated from a mathematical advantage of less than 1 dime per dollar wagered. This is the seductive logic of casino ownership. The math works in your favor on every single transaction. Every hand, every spin, every roll moves the expected value slightly towards the house. Given enough volume and enough time, the math is inexorable. Here is where it's complicated. The house edge is a long-run mathematical expectation, not a guaranteed outcome on any individual session, night, or even month. On any given night, a casino can and does lose money to players who run hot. A high roller betting $100,000 per hand at Picard can walk away with $5 million in a single session, money the casino has to pay from its cash reserves immediately and recover over subsequent weeks of volume from other players. This is why casinos maintain something called a cage, a heavily secured cash reserve that functions as the operating capital of the gaming floor. The minimum cage requirements set by regulators vary by jurisdiction and floor size, but a mid-sized commercial casino typically needs between $5 and $20 million in readily accessible cash just to cover its daily exposure to player winning streaks before the math has time to reassert itself. And here is the trap that catches most first-time casino investors. The variance, the short-term swings around the mathematical expectation, is enormous relative to most businesses. A casino that should theoretically win 10% of its handle in a given month can win 6% or win 14%, depending entirely on the distribution of outcomes that happen to occur. The business plan assumes the theoretical win rate. The actual cash flow arrives at whatever variance the cards and dice produce. Managing that variance, maintaining enough liquidity to survive the losing months while the long-run math works its way back towards expectation, is the central financial challenge of casino operation. And it is a challenge that has destroyed operators who understood the mathematics perfectly but miscalculated the capital required to survive the journey. Now let's talk about where a modern casino actually generates its profit, because the answer has shifted dramatically over the past 2 decades, and the shift explains why so many traditional casino operators are struggling, while a different type of gaming company is thriving. The gaming floor itself, slots, table games, poker rooms, is what most people think of as the casino business, and it is genuinely the largest single revenue source for most casino operations. A large commercial casino can generate between $200 million and $1 billion annually from its gaming floor alone. But the gaming floor has a problem. It's expensive to operate. Dealers have to be paid, surveillance has to be maintained. The regulatory compliance department, the team of lawyers, accountants, and compliance officers required to maintain a gaming license in good standing, costs millions of dollars per year in legal and compliance fees. Gaming equipment depreciates rapidly. Slot machines have a useful life of approximately 7 to 10 years before they need replacement, and the gaming tax takes its share before any of these costs are covered. The result is that the net margin on pure gaming revenue, after the gaming tax, the labor, the equipment, the compliance, and the surveillance costs, runs somewhere between 15 and 25% for a well-run regional operation. Meaningful, but not extraordinary for the amount of capital deployed to generate it. Here is where the real money hides. The hotel, the restaurants, the entertainment venues, the retail space, the convention business.
A casino hotel charges room rates that run between $150 and $500 per night, and the occupancy rates at major casino resorts run between 85 and 95%, because the casino itself is subsidizing room prices and actively driving occupancy through player reward programs. The gross margin on a hotel room is approximately 70 to 80%, dramatically higher than the gaming floor. The food and beverage operation, restaurants, bars, nightclubs, and room service, generates margins of 60 to 70% on alcohol and 20 to 35% on food. The entertainment venues, concert halls, theaters, boxing arenas, sell tickets, sell premium seating packages, and drive hotel occupancy on nights that would otherwise be slow. But the most profitable single revenue source in a modern integrated casino resort is one most visitors never think about at all: the convention and meetings business. A large casino resort with 200,000 square feet of convention space can generate between $50 million and $200 million annually from corporate meetings, trade shows, and conventions, at margins that rival the gaming floor, without the regulatory complexity, the variance risk, and the gaming tax.
Corporate convention clients pay for the space, pay for the food and beverage, pay for the hotel rooms, and bring thousands of attendees who spend money on the gaming floor, the restaurants, and the retail outlets while they are there. The convention drives revenue across every department simultaneously. This is why the largest and most profitable casino operators in the world have systematically transformed themselves from gaming companies into hospitality and entertainment companies that happen to have a casino on the premises. Now, let's talk about what happens when this business breaks, because it has broken spectacularly at the highest levels of the industry. Revel Atlantic City, a $2.4 billion integrated resort that opened on the Atlantic City Boardwalk in April 2012. It was the most expensive casino ever built on the East Coast. The facilities were genuinely extraordinary: 1,399 hotel rooms, 14 restaurants, 6 nightclubs, a 5,500-seat entertainment venue, and a gaming floor covering 130,000 square feet. It filed for bankruptcy in March 2013, less than 1 year after opening. It emerged from bankruptcy, changed management, and filed for bankruptcy again in June 2014. It closed permanently in September 2014, having never generated a single profitable quarter. The construction costs had been financed almost entirely with debt, at a time when Atlantic City's market share was already being eroded by new casino competition in neighboring states. The revenue projections that justified the debt assumed a market that no longer existed by the time the building opened. The fixed costs of servicing $1.5 billion in construction debt, approximately $100 million in interest alone, required a level of gaming revenue that the Atlantic City market could not deliver. Revel was not a bad casino. It was an extraordinary facility in a market that had fundamentally changed between the time the project was conceived and the time it opened. Donald Trump's casino operations in Atlantic City tell a similar story at even larger scale. Trump Plaza, Trump Castle, and the Trump Taj Mahal, which was the largest casino in the world when it opened in 1990, were each individually financed with enormous debt loads that assumed Atlantic City would continue growing. When the market saturated and competition intensified, the interest payments on that debt consumed the cash flow that should have funded operations. The Trump Taj Mahal went through bankruptcy 5 times between 1991 and 2016 before closing permanently. Not because people stopped gambling there, because the debt structure built on top of the gaming revenue could not survive the market's evolution. The structural lesson connecting Revel and the Trump properties is the same one that appears in every major casino failure. The gaming floor generates real revenue. The house edge is mathematically real. But when the debt required to build the facility is large enough, and when the market assumptions underlying the debt prove wrong, no house edge is large enough to service the obligation. Let's put real numbers on what a full year actually looks like. In the optimistic scenario, a well-located mid-sized commercial casino in a regional market with limited competition, annual gross gaming revenue of $150 million. Gaming tax at 20% removes $30 million immediately, leaving $120 million. Labor, surveillance, compliance, equipment depreciation, and gaming floor operating costs consume another $45 million, leaving $75 million in gaming floor net revenue.
Hotel operations generate $40 million annually at 75% margin, contributing $30 million. Food, beverage, and entertainment generate $25 million at 40% margin, contributing $10 million. Convention and non-gaming revenue adds another $15 million at 60% margin, contributing $9 million. Total operating profit before debt service, approximately $124 million. Against that, debt service on $500 million in construction financing at 6% interest runs approximately $30 million per year in interest alone. Corporate overhead, marketing, and player reward program costs add another $25 million. Property taxes on a large commercial facility run between $5 million and $15 million annually. Net profit in the optimistic scenario between $54 and $64 million annually for a well-run regional casino with manageable debt. In the realistic scenario, a competing casino opens in an adjacent market and captures 20% of the regional gaming volume. Gross gaming revenue drops from $150 million to $120 million. The gaming tax still takes its 20%. Labor costs increase as the casino increases promotional spending and staff levels to compete for the reduced customer base. A variance month produces a 4% actual win rate against the 8% theoretical, requiring a $6 million draw on cash reserves. Under those conditions, the same casino that projected $60 million in annual profit generates $20 million, barely enough to service the debt while maintaining the property and the regulatory compliance requirements that keep the license active. And the license is everything. A casino that loses its gaming license does not become a hotel. It becomes a very expensive empty building with no alternative use and no buyer. Here's the structural observation that explains everything we just walked through. A casino does not sell gambling. It sells a controlled environment where mathematical certainty and human psychology operate simultaneously in the operator's favor. The mathematics are genuinely on your side. Every game is structured so that the expected outcome over sufficient volume produces revenue for the house. That part of the business is as close to a sure thing as exists in commerce. The problem is everything surrounding the mathematics. The license that took 3 years and $3 million to obtain and can be revoked for a compliance failure you did not commit. The debt that funded the building and the man's payment regardless of whether the variance went against you this month. The regulatory tax that takes its share before you cover a single operating cost. The competing casino that opened 40 miles away and split your market. The player reward program that requires you to give back a meaningful percentage of every dollar you win just to keep the customer coming back. The house edge guarantees that the math works in your favor on the gaming floor. It guarantees nothing about whether the business built around that gaming floor can survive the capital requirements, the regulatory burden, the market competition, and the debt structure that sit between the mathematical advantage and the actual profit. The casino always wins the game. Whether the casino owner wins the business is an entirely different question.